And here we go. Top Cal Tuesday. We're winding down what we have to discuss for this long-running web series. If you're into 90s comics, if you're into what I consider the greatest comic book era of all time, it's a comic book era with errors. So Top Cal comes into the forefront. They publish Cyberforce. And one of the standout characters in Cyberforce is the Wolverine analog, aka Ripclaw. But they do some really nice work with Ripclaw. Like, I'm talking really nice work. They expand his Native American background. They do a lot of character building with him and his relationship with Velocity. Before we go monthly, he gets a one-shot and a 3-issue miniseries. Here's the wild thing. I thought this was a monthly book that got canceled. It turns into a monthly book that's essentially a side tangent to everything happening in Cyberforce at the time. So it's not really a solo book outside of issue 3. And we see here, at the end of issue 6, continued in the pages of Cyberforce. So today, I thought I was going to do issues 1 through 6 and give you one big kaleidoscope of what happened. And then at that point, we were going to just reevaluate what the positioning was for Top Cal Tuesday, maybe take a little bit of a break. But, well, for issues 4, 5, and 6, we're going to have to wait for next week because I need to get some Cyberforce issues and I can lay it out for you guys, because I feel like the way how this intersects with Cyberforce is very interesting, and I think it makes some of the Cyberforce issues better knowing what happens in 4, 5, and 6. But today, well, we got a lot of disappointment here. I'm a little bit upset at these 3 issues. Let me explain. I try and put myself in the shoes of the readers at the time. So if you got excited for Ripclaw, you were excited because you had read his one-shot, the Ripclaw special. Or you may have read the Ripclaw 3-issue miniseries, which even here incorporates Cyberforce pretty heavily in the final issue. I think it's a little bit odd to make a character solo and you throw what he's from into the finale of that series. It doesn't mean he cannot interact with his teammates and other characters of that book, but you need characters to really stand on their own. So one of the things that happens here in the Ripclaw special is we learn about his brother, and his brother essentially gets trapped in this like demon dimension, this demon world. And this is a little bit what I'm talking about. Ripclaw becomes a little bit more of a spiritual character, and it's so well defined in the miniseries and the one-shot. So it seemed like it was all systems are go that the monthly, right? The monthly that they kind of set up here. Well, it was going to involve Ripclaw tracking down his brother in this like in this like spirit world. But what we get is we get this like mystery. And we get this setup here where this magical Illuminati, they're looking for a mirror. And then here we go, right? Then we get Ripclaw in college. It's like Indiana Jones. And he's like giving a lecture. And no, according to the captions, this is what Ripclaw does for downtime from Cyberforce. So this detective that's on the case visits him, gets a little bit of info, and all systems are go. So we get visually, we get this expansion of the Top Cow coloring, and I'll say this, a layout philosophy to where the panels and everything kind of gets bigger as you get into the guts of the issue. What they do here with Ripclaw, and how did look, it's volume 2 issue 1, which is really weird, right? Because this is volume 1, and then this is right here, volume 1. So I mean, and they're all published in 1 year. It's like, isn't that they really botched that. But what Top Cow does at this time, I call it top heavy, where the first 5 or 6 pages is all the setup you need for three or 4 issues. They did this with Cyberforce Monthly. They did it with Velocity. They do it everywhere, and it works because it's so top heavy that they build the plot, and then the rest of the series you're kind of moving like this, right? And they do that, they slow it down by blowing out their paneling. And Top Cow always, excuse me guys, I got a really bad tickle in my throat today. Let me get some of that coffee. But Top Cow's great with staying on assignment. They're really big at this time. I'll show you. We have to get issue 6 here. See, all the image books, you know, and this is like a little bit of the Rob Liefeld effect. This is why, this is what I really feel like was Marc Silvestri's true gripe with Rob Liefeld. Rob Liefeld could not keep his books on time. Rob Liefeld having timely books made Image better. Without Rob Liefeld, who would they have to lean on? Savage Dragon essentially had declining sales from the very start. You had Shadowhawk, but having a strong Jim Lee, who also had trouble keeping a deadline. So at that point, you really have Marc Silvestri and Todd McFarlane propping up Image Comics, because Image as a company gets a percentage. So I want to say the real gripe was Rob Liefeld just not being able to do something like this. See, there's no such thing as a Extreme Studios guarantee to the shipping dates of their books. Top Cow locked it in. And they locked it in by committing to a house style. So you don't get a lot of deviation with some of this artwork. Anthony Wynn here. But Anthony Wynn does a fantastic Marc Silvestri, to where I think in the naked eye you would see kind of like some of the cross hatching around the belly, some of the shadow here, you know, even the bricks, right? Like some of that debris. That's very like Marc Silvestri here, right? Like that. Like Marc Silvestri does that. But we get poses. So just visually, if you pick this up from the shelf and you look through, you would say like, oh, Marc Silvestri's drawing this. You'll get home, look at the inside page, or maybe just start reading it. And then you realize you're like, it's not Marc Silvestri. Even though this big dude that's throwing Ripclaw around, they burst the pipes and the water splashing all over. You might say to yourself, that's Marc Silvestri. So this emergence of a true studio system dictated by a single artist comes through in Top Cow. And here's the wild thing. Top Cow and Todd McFarlane were the two consistent guys, and they both echoed high-end studio systems. Greg Capullo, Angel Medina for Spawn, for example, right? You saw how close they were to Todd McFarlane. And when they left those books, that Todd McFarlane style left with them. But we get some Top Cow, fantastic, always introducing new villains, new threats, and we get this like redheaded girl here. And literally, Detective Ripclaw. This is our future betrayer, but this is the guy. He's a little bit like the Doctor Strange of this universe. He monitors everything wrong with magic, and he's, he runs a little shop. We've seen that character before. But we get a nice looking villain in this. And essentially, this becomes, we gotta stop the portal type thing. Now, I didn't get into reading this because I'm so disappointed that we're not on the trail of the brother. So again, we go issue to issue. Like nice looking stuff though, nice looking characters. And we see something here. Something occurred to me. And I'm sorry I'm not going through the story. I didn't get interested in reading this. Look, call it sour grapes. But I wanted these 6 issues to be a part of something else. And they weren't. So I'm pissed off. Maybe I'll read it later. I did read some of it though. So one thing I noticed with some of these pages is they kind of feel a lot like Witchblade to me. So earlier when I was talking about this like evolution, where like what's the crossover book from the Top Cow style versus what happens with Witchblade and what happens with Darkness. And you kind of want to say Ripclaw is that bridge. But we get some like nice magic stuff. We get some like good magic lore. They set up the rules very well. And we have like a lot of villains. The girl, she gets sucked into the portal. Ripclaw gets sucked into the portal with her. I think Hayden, that's this guy. He betrays Ripclaw. And then they go into like the spirit world. And again too, like this is the stuff you want from a Ripclaw comic. Where, like it's almost like you're in like the Freddy Krueger dream world. And that's her true form. Like really kind of like cool looking stuff. And again, that rubble, that pipe, looking very Marc Silvestri. Well, he basically shatters her reality. When she gets back to like our normal Earth, everything, like her essence like transforms into rats, because I think that's what they were originally. And then like the adventure goes on, and Ripclaw just suits back up and is wearing his leather jacket, and he's back on the mission. And then here he's having like girlfriend trouble. And it's just like, oh my god. And then we get into this weird dream sequence where again, like we have Misery. So this again is a nod to I think it's Cyberforce issue 22. And then Sideblade shows up. And we kind of just like end. And I did read issue 4 because I felt like there was like some momentum. But when I read issue 4, I'm like, I need to talk about issue 20 to 25 of Cyberforce. Which we'll do. But just understanding this, AKAPADers. This, I think at the time, going back to the point of putting myself in the shoes of the individuals that bought this at the time. If you bought this, you just would have been zonked out. Very little incentive to buy continuing issues. Very little incentive on how they're growing the Ripclaw character. Overall, bad choices, but powerful presentation. And that saved Top Cow for a little bit. So guys, usually I get excited. I tell you guys to go buy stuff. I feel like you can skip Ripclaw issues 1, 2, and 3. If you want to know about Ripclaw's brother, get the special. Technically, the original Ripclaw 3-issue miniseries, you can give that a shot because I really like the ending for that. But sorry guys, quick one today. Top Cow Tuesday.